Tune in. The Black Hair Party presents the Real Talk Show, where we talk about friendship, love, and purpose. I am JRX 36, and this is an All Ages Alliance production. So we about to just hop straight in it. We about to do a box in the box production. I'm about to share the screen, and this is an oldie, a goodie. So this is a past version of a game, and we'll talk through it. I'll do my best to describe it and speak on it from that perspective at that time because there have been some changes.
Enter the Neo Interreality Library. Golden Castle of Hope. Library of Providence. The Nation of Ones. One united nation in service to life, liberty, and the expression of happiness. Social. One united nation in service to life, liberty, and the expression of happiness. Enter the Neo
Now,
Interreality Vivarium.
not yet, not
Enter the
yet,
Neo.
not yet, not yet. We'll play it once, and then we'll play it twice, and then we'll talk about it. Second ride. This is gonna be loud. Mhm. Okay, it's all corrected. Go like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. This is 36.
Interreality Vivarium. Golden Castle of Hope. Library of Providence.
Enter the Neo Interreality Vibranium Golden Castle of Hope, Library of Providence. And then we're gonna just let it play, like I said.
The Nation of Ones. One united nation in service to life, liberty, and the expression of happiness. Social divisions. Living, breathing, flesh and blood humans exist in three forms: male with living offspring, female with living offspring, and male or female with no living offspring. Living, breathing, flesh and blood humans exist in three main and four subracial types: Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, Negrocaucasoid, Mongol Caucasoid, Negromongoloid, Negromongol Caucasoid. Declaration of Social Equality. Each of the forms and racial types ought have equal access to health, happiness, and opportunities to creative expression. Social Agreement. Males with living offspring and females with living offspring ought to have equal responsibility to provide fuel and shelter to offspring. Agreement is null and void when offspring declares autonomy or when offspring procreates. Males with living offspring ought to collectively bear the responsibility for maintaining a gift fund for males with offspring of all racial types that demonstrate need and are able and willing to exchange attention for resources. Females with living offspring ought to collectively bear the responsibility for maintaining a gift fund for females with offspring that demonstrate need and are able and willing to exchange attention for resources. Males and females with no offspring whom have declared autonomy ought to collectively bear the responsibility for maintaining a gift fund for males and females with no offspring that demonstrate need and are able and willing to exchange attention for resources. Diamond Rule of Civility. Void expressions that control and slash or restrict others. Anyone that disrupts another ought to expect to be disrupted. Consequences for disruptions include reparations and slash or separation. Interaction expectation. Every expressed expression in a shared space ought to be precise. Every expressed micro and macro gesture ought to be in alignment with the content and context of the associated communication. Absent consent, void exposure to the private works and slash or spaces of others. Void the use of limbs or tools to cause damage to others. Flag of Nation of Ones. Flag of Moreda. Ultraviolet Order. Way of Hope. When in the physical company of a living, breathing, flesh and blood human, absent consent. 1. Void expressions about the past and future. 2. Void expressions that control and restrict others' manipulation and deception. Victimization, limitations, contradictions, omission, flattery. 3. Void interrupting the expressions of others. 4. Void expressions of others, not present. 5. Void expressing the secrets of others. 6. Void exposure to the private works and spaces of others. 7. Void the crossing of limbs in the presence of others. 8. Void the use of fingers to point at others with whom you converse. 9. Void expressions of joy at the expense of others' physical or mental performance. 10. Void expressions of joy in the presence of others, not at ease. 11. Void expressions that instruct. 12. Void expressing statements of fact of things, places, ideas, and/or of people you have an absence of knowledge or awareness of. 13. Void expressions about the physical performance of those with whom you converse. 14. Void expressions about the mental performance of those with whom you converse. 15. Void expressions of comparison when in conversation with others. 16. Void the physical restraint of others. 17. Void the use of limbs to cause damage to others. 18. Void the use of tools to cause damage to others. Flag of Initia. Enter the Neo Interreality Vivarium. Alien. Experience a Neo now. Gameplay. Experience type. Single player, solo play. Multiplayer, team play. Play space. Online, virtual. In life, physical. Interreality Vivarium, online plus in life. Games. Everyone plays, power. One life, strategy. One score, score. Becoming one, story. Nation of Ones, legacy. Game mode. Player 2, nerve. Player 1, EIOS services. Computer, Dreamspace Institute. Spawn roles. Past sense, C, coaches. Present links, L, players. Future visions, V, agents. Ionic readers, ER, scouts. Spawn sites. Happiness, I, Y. Health, I, X. Access, I, Z. Storyline, IV, O. Nerve records time in play, storyline data, and one score of all ones. Gamify life. Everyone plays. Nation of Ones. One life. Becoming one.
All right. So that was the nerve.
Enter the Neo Interreality Vivarium.
So let's just start from the top. We about to break it down. We about to unpack everything that is said on this particular video. Enter the Neo into reality vibranium. Neo, enter the new reality. Enter reality meaning that there's realities within realities. Vibranium, um, kind of like a fish tank, kind of like a snow globe, kind of like an enclosure. So enter the new world, the new enclosure. Enter the new enclosure, the new inter-reality vibranium. So this is the idea that there's like a dream space, there's like a wake space, there's like a digital virtual space. So there are these spaces, these realities that we exist in. We're entering this new space where we could consciously be in all states, be productive, effective, efficient, etc.
Golden Castle of Hope. Library.
Golden Castle of Hope. So you're looking at the Golden Castle of Hope. So that is a real life castle in the city of Providence, Rhode Island, in the country of the US of A. That is a real castle that, as far as I know, is vacant or had been vacant um, at the time that this was put together. So in my vision, this is the Golden Castle of Hope that one day will be occupied and used for the headquarters of the Neo Interreality Vibranium. And this Golden Castle of Hope would contain the Library of Providence, which is a collection of all the books from the world, a collection of the profiles of all the peoples of the world. And these books are knowledge that then get saved and stored at the Library of Providence, which will be a combination of a digital virtual library and a physical library.
Library of Providence. The Nation of Ones. One united nation in service to life, liberty, and the expression of
One united nation in service to life, liberty, and the expression of happiness. So this is what we're about in my world, in my reality, in the reality that I would like to exist full time. I want to be part of a world where I am part of a nation, one united nation in service to life, liberty, and the expression of happiness. So that's the motto, that's the quote, that's what the nation of ones is about. The nation of ones are those that occupy the golden castle of hope. This is like the peacemakers of the world.
Of happiness. Social divisions. Living, breathing, flesh and blood humans exist in three forms.
So social division. So now the reality, one of the realities that I have perceived is that humans uh, choose to um, divide themselves based on different criteria for different reasons. So within the nation of ones, the following is how the individuals, the humans are divided. Living, breathing, flesh and blood humans exist in three forms. Males with living offspring, so those are fathers, females with living offspring, mothers, and male or female with no living offspring. So the most basic fundamental division is around family. So we have uh, individuals who are fathers, individuals who are mothers, and individuals who are neither father nor mother.
Forms. Male with living offspring, female with living offspring, and male or female with no living offspring.
And when it comes to that, it's like really it's clear. Either you are a male possessing a seed that was transmitted to a womb which a baby was born. And you got father, mother, son, father, mother, daughter. And then that son or daughter has an opportunity to also procreate and continue the cycle, the perpetuation of the nation.
Living, breathing, flesh and blood humans exist in three main and four subracial types: Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, Negrocaucasoid, Mongol Caucasoid, Negro-Mongoloid, Negro-Mongol Caucasoid.
So, this was a challenging one because, okay, so that is easy. You see father, mother, like that's clear to the eye. Then the next has to do with race, which is really a color of skin. Um, and it's challenging because we're on a spectrum. And it's challenging because to a large degree, it is a social construct. So, for instance, there are individuals in the United States that 100 and 200 years ago uh, would have not been recognized or identified as white in the United States. However, over time they've been able to use that label. And then white. I'm associating white with Caucasoid. You can go crayons, white, black, yellow, gold, copper. We can go crayons, or we can go these pseudo scientific or scientific uh, definitions or terms. So we got three main types. We got Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid. So what does that mean? We clearly have individuals that are very melanated, very dark, or dark melanated, non-melanated. And then we have uh, Mongoloid who have a distinct look and have been somewhat isolated from the rest of the world for over thousands of years. Um, um, so that so we have divided ourselves within these three main types, and then there's four subtypes which are combinations of these three. And you might ask, what's the purpose? Well, it's a reality. Children, they see fathers, mothers, and then children see melanated, non-melanated, and Asian, like or Mongoloid. And then the reason I use these terms, Mongoloid, Caucasoid, is because to use geographic, social, or geopolitical locations to match race, that doesn't really, like, Africa doesn't necessarily mean black, although historically it has meant black. But in a future moment, it may be different, just like the United States was once uh, indigenous, and then now it's white, it's Caucasian. Like, that's a shift. So something happens where the dominant culture, or the main, or the larger population, was removed, or was surpassed, or was replaced, or was taken over or was replaced by a new race in this case. So we got Caucasoid, which is white, Mongoloid, which is thinking of individuals from Asia, like China, Korea, and then Negroid, which is black. And then in reality, now we have these mixtures of, or these blends of these different racial types. And this is among the most complicated social division there is. But it's one that needs to be addressed in this modern world where we have countries that are no longer homogenous or are no longer the same. These are we have cultures now that have been blended in every way, shape, or form.
Declaration of Social Equality. Each of the forms and racial types ought have equal access to health, happiness, and opportunities to creative expression.
So boom, Declaration of Social Equality. But we have these divisions, but we all equal, or we should all have equal access, meaning not one race or another should not be disrupted from pursuing or from accessing health, happiness, and opportunities to creatively express themselves. And opportunities to creatively express themselves is, the idea that of being able to use tools to be able to create technologies or art pieces that will allow you to express yourself. Now, there's going to be challenges in this category when people are choosing to creatively express themselves by creating technologies that are harmful or detrimental to others. And then that's where then we need a further conversation in some sort of social court, which we'll discuss in a future moment.
Social agreement. Males with living offspring and females with living offspring ought to have equal responsibility to provide fuel and shelter to offspring. Agreement is null and void when offspring declares autonomy or when offspring procreates.
All right, so boom, social agreement. You got men with living offspring and females with living offspring that should have equal responsibility to provide the basics for their children, their offspring. So what does that mean? That means that if two people come together, have a child, have an offspring, have a baby, they have a 50-50 responsibility to care for that baby by providing at the minimum, food to eat, place to cover themselves, some form of shelter to cover themselves from the elements. That's the basics. Now, ideally, then uh, they would take responsibility for loving the offspring, but we can't promise that. We can't, in real life, in reality, we can't promise that. But we can encourage through a social pressure of a social agreement, the idea that we have equal responsibility to provide fuel and shelter. And then to the degree that there's a community around those individuals, and we can be supportive by helping them access tools to be creative and opportunities to meet others and be part of teams where they can get affection, attention, and that kind of love and sense of belonging.
Males with living offspring ought to collectively bear the responsibility for maintaining a gift fund for males with offspring of all racial types that demonstrate need and are able and willing to exchange attention for resources.
All right, so this says that, you know, men that have children, or yeah, men that have children should collectively bear the responsibility for having a fund, a gift fund, where other males of all races um, have access to exchange their attention, their time, their resources. Now they have to demonstrate that they have a need and are able and willing. And that's vague purposely so that it can be part of a conversation that can be had in social court. So social court essentially becomes the the governing body that aligns its vision and mission with this social contract, social agreement. Now, the same as with the men occurs with the women, is with the women.
Females with living offspring ought to collectively bear the responsibility for maintaining a gift fund for females with offspring that demonstrate need and are able and willing to exchange attention for resources.
So this basically means that men with children ought to have some sort of connection with other men with children. And that connection should create this um, responsibility that causes men to care for other men who may not be doing well for one reason or the other, hence this gift fund. And through social court, the distribution of these gift funds can be better articulated. This is just a basic guide instruction so that then in social court, the details can be social court, the youth government. This nation of ones has a youth government that within it has a social court that handles um, questions, matters, or concerns regarding the social agreement and or contents of this document.
Forces. Males and females with no offspring whom have declared autonomy ought to collectively bear the responsibility for maintaining a gift fund for males and females with no offspring that demonstrate need and are able and willing to exchange attention for resources.
So you got father, mother, child. Each category has a responsibility for its own category. So there will be no other social welfare. This is the social welfare system from within. It's a voluntary gift fund that people opt into giving. Um, so it's like a self tax, if you want to, let's call it. Let's use a more common language. It's like an optional voluntary tax that then you have access to to draw on if you are ever in a moment of need and are able and willing to exchange your attention for resources.
Diamond rule of civility. Void expressions that control and slash or restrict others. Anyone that disrupts another ought to expect to be disrupted. Consequences for disruptions include reparations and slash or separation. Interaction expectation. Every expressed expression in a shared space ought to be.
Okay, so let me talk about the diamond rule of civility. The diamond rule of civility. Void expressions that control or restrict others. So basically, don't use words or your physical body to express, to communicate a message that controls or restricts another person without their permission. Meaning, like, they're not your student, they haven't, you don't have that relationship where you can tell them where they can and cannot go physically or what they can and cannot say, et cetera, unless there's that relationship that has already been established. Um, Anyone that disrupts another ought to expect to be disrupted. That's just, it's cause and effect. You disrupt, expect to be disrupted. Consequences for disruption include reparations, pain, and taxes now, or just separation. There's a create some distance between the two.
Precise. Every expressed micro and macro gesture S ought to be in alignment with the content and context of the associated communication. Absent consent.
So every expressed expression in a shared space ought to be precise. By precise, I mean like if you're gonna be sarcastic, be precisely sarcastic. If you're gonna use slang, then be conscious of who you're communicating with, so that the slang is precise. That communication is precise, and it isn't vague enough to where it can result in some miscommunications. And if it is, then the idea is to practice being more precise for the goal of having an ease in communication with others and for maintaining harmony. This also is vague, but the idea is to the degree that you practice this, you'll get better and you will better understand the reasoning behind it. But precision is important. That way there can be clarity in the relationship. When there's an absence of clarity, it tends to produce a form of chaos. Now, every expressed micro and macro gesture ought to be in alignment with the content and context of the associated communication. So all that means is if you appear to be upset, but you're saying really good words, it sends mixed messages. It sends the multiple messages to the receivers around you, to the people that are receiving the communication that you're transmitting. Like it's a confusion. It's like a double speak. It's like you're saying one thing but doing another, but by using your body language. So this is the interaction expectation. So it's like if you want, like like this is new nature, this is new thing. You want to hang out, let's agree to these things. Like let's be part of these things. Like let's agree. We got to agree to something. What are we going to agree to?
Avoid exposure to the private works and slash or spaces of others. Avoid the use of limbs or tools to cause damage to others.
So boom. So even if you don't got permission, so so we got avoid expressions that control or restrict others. Now we got avoid exposures to the private works and or spaces of others. So this is about power, freedom. Like you don't have the power to take nobody's freedom. You don't have the power to look at private works, private spaces of other people. Like you can't just invade people's privacy. You can't pass that line. And then you also don't have the right to use tools or your arms or limbs to cause damage to them. Like you can't hit people. These are the three main voids. And then one falls under the diamond rule of civility, the other two fall under interaction expectation. This is the basic social socially constructed contract agreement. So the contract, we can call it an agreement.
Flag of Nation of Ones. Flag of Moreda.
Now we got some flags, flag of Nation of Ones, flag of Moretta, and then we move into ultraviolet order, the black order, the way of hope, or the golden castle of hope. And at this moment, we're going to just end it here. And in the next, we'll go into the 18 voids. I've done that before, but I'd like to do it again within the context of this video and what's going on right here. Well, it's time to tune out, tune out, tune out, tune out. The Black Hair Party has presented the Real Talk Show, where we talked a little bit about this, that, and the other. And now we're at the end. I am JRX36, and this has been an All Ages Alliance production. See ya. See ya. See ya. Hasta luego.